Normally when there's trade, right, trade is a two-way street. The only reason that you export is because you want to import something else. You don't export just to export, that's just a waste. Because you're working. I mean, you don't work, nobody has a job because they enjoy working, at least not most people. They have a job because they want the things that they can get with their paycheck. And most people, if you offer them a paycheck in lieu of working, they would take the paycheck and not work. But we've convinced everybody that work is an ends in and of itself, right? Just like all the slaves had jobs. Just because they had a job, doesn't mean it was satisfying. Everybody in the Soviet Union had a job. It's like that passage in Tom Sawyer where Tom Sawyer was able to convince all the kids in his neighborhood to paint his fence. And he was able to tell them that this is a great experience. You got to do this chore, and by the way, you need to pay me for it. So he was able to get all the kids to do his chores, and he sat back and drank soda pop and collected money. And I joke about it, but you wouldn't have imagined that Mark Twain, when he was writing this little book over 100 years ago, would figure that would one day form the basis for the global economy. But that's what's happened. But the world is going to figure out that they got their own fences that they can paint. They don't have to paint ours. But initially, we got away with it when the world was sending us all their stuff and we sent them dollars. There was demand for those dollars, and that people wanted to invest them in our stocks, in our bonds, in our real estate. So there was a private sector demand for our assets. And starting from about 2000, that private sector demand really dried up. There were better returns available abroad. There were better investment opportunities in emerging markets in other parts of the world. And so people didn't really want dollars. Now, they didn't want dollars because we didn't have any stuff, and now we didn't even have any investment opportunities. So what happened was the governments began to pick up the slack. And foreign governments began to buy up all these unwanted dollars. Now, if those governments hadn't been there, the dollar would have just lost much more of its value without that artificial market. But that's where all these enormous reserves came from, and all these huge sovereign wealth funds. This is all the excess dollars that foreigners earned for which there was no market. And so in order to artificially prop up the dollar, foreign governments came in and bought them. But every time they do that, they had to create inflation in their own country. Because if the Bank of Japan is going to buy dollars, they got to print Japanese yen, and then they buy dollars. Same thing in China. They have to print RMB, so they increase their own money supply to buy dollars.